Why God goes silent before promotion. The hidden season every chosen one must survive. Have you ever prayed and heard nothing? You closed your eyes. You bowed your head. You poured your heart out before God. You asked for direction. You asked for clarity. You asked for a sign. And when you finished praying, all you heard was silence. No answer. No breakthrough. No explanation. Just silence. And if you're honest, that silence frightened you. Because silence makes us ask difficult questions. Did God hear me? Did I do something wrong? Has heaven forgotten me? Am I walking alone? Many people never talk about this season. The season when God feels distant. The season when the heavens seem closed. The season when the prayers continue, but the answers don't seem to come. And because they don't understand it, many people quit. They walk away from their faith. They abandon their purpose. They stop praying. They stop believing. They stop preparing because they mistake God's silence for God's absence. But what if heaven's silence doesn't mean heaven is absent? What if silence is not rejection? What if silence is not punishment? What if God's silence is one of the greatest signs that promotion is near? Tonight, we are entering one of the deepest seasons of the chosen one's journey. The season nobody celebrates. The season nobody posts about. The season where faith must survive without applause. The season of silence. The silence that terrifies the chosen. Silence has a way of exposing what noise hides. When life is moving quickly, it's easy to believe. When opportunities are appearing, it's easy to trust. When doors are opening, it's easy to worship. But what happens when none of those things are happening? What happens when you pray and nothing changes? You fast and nothing changes? You obey and nothing changes? The chosen one often enters this season confused because he thought obedience guaranteed immediate results. He thought faith eliminated waiting. He thought prayer removed uncertainty. But silence teaches a lesson that noise never can. Faith is not believing because you have evidence. Faith is continuing to trust when evidence hasn't appeared yet. Anyone can trust God when the answer is yes. But can you trust Him when the answer is wait? Can you trust Him when heaven is quiet? Can you remain faithful when the breakthrough delays? Because silence tests what celebration never reveals. Why God removes constant confirmation. Most of us want constant reassurance. We want signs. We want immediate answers. We want certainty. We want God to explain every step before we take it. But imagine raising a child who never learns to walk independently. Every step requires holding their hand. Every decision requires permission. Every challenge requires rescue. Eventually, growth stops because maturity requires trust, and trust grows strongest in silence. The chosen one begins discovering that God is not interested only in giving instructions. He is interested in building character. Heaven removes constant confirmation, not to weaken faith, but to deepen it, because there comes a moment when God asks, will you still obey me? When I don't explain everything, will you still prepare? When you don't understand the timing, will you still believe? When you cannot see the outcome, that is where maturity begins. Not when answers are obvious, but when trust becomes stronger than understanding. The roots nobody sees. Look at the strongest trees in the world. Their greatest strength isn't what you see above ground. It's what developed beneath it. Roots. Hidden. Unnoticed. Uncelebrated it. For years. Nothing dramatic appears. No towering branches. No massive shade. No visible evidence of greatness. Yet underground, the roots are expanding, strengthening, preparing. And one day, the growth above the surface finally reflects what was built beneath it. The chosen one often lives in a root season. People around him assume nothing is happening. They see ordinary days, ordinary routines, ordinary effort. But heaven sees something different. Patience developing, wisdom developing, discipline developing, humility developing, strength developing. And when promotion finally comes, people call it sudden. But heaven knows it was years in the making. Because hidden growth is still growth. And just because nobody can see the roots, doesn't mean the tree isn't becoming stronger. The trial of faith. There is something heartbreaking about silence. Not because silence is loud, but because silence gives your fears room to speak. And when heaven becomes quiet, fear often becomes noisy. You begin hearing thoughts you never entertained before. Maybe God forgot me. Maybe I misunderstood my calling. Maybe I wasn't chosen after all. Maybe everyone else was right. Maybe I should just give up. And this leads us to one of the greatest dangers of the silent season. Why most people quit here? Most people don't quit during failure. They quit during uncertainty. They can survive pain. They can survive opposition. They can survive criticism. But uncertainty breaks them. Because human beings crave certainty. We want guarantees. We want timelines. We want to know exactly when things will happen. We ask, how much longer? When will my season change? When will my prayers be answered? When will I finally see results? But heaven rarely gives exact timelines. Because if people knew how long the process would take, many would serve the timeline instead of trusting God. So the chosen one learns something difficult. Faith isn't trusting God's schedule. Faith is trusting God's character, even when you don't understand His calendar. The reason many people quit is because they expected the journey to be easier. They expected immediate rewards, immediate breakthroughs, immediate answers. But promotion is expensive, not financially, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, because God is preparing you to carry what you've been praying for. And preparation always costs something. It costs comfort. It costs certainty. It costs impatience. And many people walk away before the harvest because they grew tired of planting. Do not quit in the season of silence. You may be standing one step away from the very thing you've been praying for. The danger of comparison. Silence becomes even more difficult when everyone else appears to be winning. You open your phone. Someone got promoted. Someone bought a house. Someone launched a business. Someone got married. Someone's ministry exploded. Someone's dream became reality. And suddenly, you begin questioning your own journey. God, why them and not me? Did I miss my opportunity? What am I doing wrong? Comparison is dangerous because it causes you to judge your unseen process against someone else's visible results. But you don't know their story. You don't know their preparation. You don't know their battles. You don't know what they sacrificed. And most importantly, you don't know God's assignment for their life. The chosen one must understand this. Different assignments require different preparation. A shepherd's preparation looks different from a king's. A teacher's preparation looks different from a warrior's. A builder's preparation looks different from a leader's. God is not running a race against humanity. He is preparing individuals according to purpose. You cannot compare your chapter 3 to someone's chapter 20. Because heaven doesn't promote people according to popularity. Heaven promotes according to readiness. So stop looking sideways. Look upward. Focus on your assignment. Stay faithful in your lane. Because your timing belongs to God. Learning to walk by faith. There comes a moment when the chosen one stops demanding proof. Not because questions disappear, but because trust becomes stronger. He still doesn't have all the answers. He still doesn't know exactly when. He still doesn't understand every delay. But he keeps moving. He keeps preparing. He keeps praying. He keeps showing up. This is what walking by faith looks like. It means taking another step when you cannot see the entire staircase. It means planting seeds when harvest isn't visible. It means training when nobody is watching. It means obeying, even when emotions disagree. Faith isn't blind optimism. Faith is confidence in God's character. The chosen one eventually realizes, if God brought me this far, He won't abandon me now. He remembers previous victories, previous miracles, previous seasons he survived, and those memories become fuel for the present battle. The silence may continue, but so does his faith. The questions may remain, but so does his obedience. Because maturity is not the absence of doubt. It is choosing trust despite doubt. The promotion after the silence. There is something extraordinary about God's timing. It rarely makes sense while you're living through it, but it often becomes beautiful when you look back on it. The prayers you thought went unheard. The tears you cried in private. The nights you questioned everything. The mornings you got up and kept going anyway. None of it was wasted. Not one prayer. Not one act of obedience. Not one season of waiting. Because heaven wastes nothing. And the chosen one eventually discovers something that changes his entire perspective. Silence was never the end of the story. It was only the middle. The piece before the breakthrough. Something unusual begins happening before promotion. The striving starts disappearing. The panic loses its grip. The desperation weakens. The chosen one begins experiencing peace. A peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. A peace that doesn't require immediate answers. A peace that cannot be explained. He still has questions, but the fear begins fading. He still doesn't know everything, but trust becomes stronger. For the first time, he stops trying to force doors open. He stops trying to control every outcome. He stops exhausting himself by carrying burdens that belong to God. Instead, he prepares. He prays. He works. He rests. He trusts. And that peace becomes evidence that maturity has taken root. Because immature faith says, I trust God only if I understand. Mature faith says, even if I don't understand, I still trust Him. The chosen one learns that peace is not the absence of storms. It is confidence in the one who walks with you through them. Why you will thank God for the silence. There will come a day when you look back on this season, and instead of resentment, you'll feel gratitude, because you'll realize what silence accomplished. The silence taught you patience. The silence taught you discipline. The silence taught you dependence. The silence taught you resilience. The silence taught you to pray without applause, to obey without explanation, to believe without visible proof. You will discover that if God had answered every prayer immediately, you would have missed the lessons that shaped your character. If every door opened instantly, you would never have developed endurance. If every desire was granted without delay, you might never have grown into the person capable of carrying it. The chosen one eventually understands this truth. God was never withholding good from him. God was preparing him for good. The delay wasn't rejection. The silence wasn't abandonment. The process wasn't punishment. It was preparation, the final revelation. Maybe you're listening to this message tonight, and you're standing in that silent season. You've prayed. You've cried. You've fasted. You've waited. And if you're honest, you're tired. Tired of hoping. Tired of wondering. Tired of asking, God, where are you? But hear this. Silence does not mean God is absent. A teacher is often silent during the test. A builder is often unseen during construction. Roots grow in hidden places. Seeds develop beneath the soil. And promotions are often prepared in private before they are revealed publicly. Do not interpret God's quietness as God's absence. Do not mistake stillness for inactivity. Do not assume heaven has forgotten your name, because the same God who called you is still guiding you. The same God who sustained you yesterday will sustain you tomorrow. The same God who planted purpose within you has not changed his mind. You may not see his hand, but that doesn't mean his hand isn't moving. You may not hear his voice, but that doesn't mean he isn't near. You may not understand his timing, but his timing has never failed. So don't quit. Don't walk away from the process. Don't abandon the assignment. Stay faithful. Stay prepared. Stay disciplined. Because one day, the silence will break. The door will open. The answer will come. And when promotion finally arrives, you will realize something beautiful. It wasn't delayed because God forgot you. It was delayed because God loved you enough to prepare you. The silence wasn't your enemy. It was your training ground. The waiting wasn't your punishment. It was your preparation. The hidden season wasn't your downfall. It was your foundation. And when the world finally sees what God has done in your life, they will celebrate the promotion. But only you will understand the price of becoming the person who could carry it. So if heaven feels quiet tonight, don't lose heart. The forge is still burning. The builder is still working. And the story isn't over. Because sometimes, the greatest promotions come after the longest silences.